Crimson Desert on PC offers a lot of graphics options to tweak, but most of them barely make any difference. On top of that, there are some graphics settings that are placed outside of the Graphics tab for some reason. You will find them under the Accessibility tab. Things like particle effects quality, motion blur intensity, and depth of field. Let's start by taking a look at the game's CPU performance. On an R5 3600X, using CPU limited settings, running around the first densely populated area you reach, this CPU manages to get a frame rate of around the mid-40s to the low 50s, which is reasonable for a game of its scope. Thankfully, I haven't encountered any stuttering issues so far, and the frame times were very smooth, and playing at those frame rates didn't feel sluggish at all. I'm happy to say that players that target lower frame rates will have a pleasant experience. For upscaling, going from native TAA to FSR 3.1 quality looks way too noisy and shimmery. DLSS 4 doesn't suffer from the same harsh look, but does look a bit soft in certain areas. DLSS 4.5 immediately looks sharper and more clear, but does so with a large performance impact, while the improvement that preset L of DLSS 4.5 makes is hard to notice over the standard 4.5 version, and it lowers FPS even further. I would like to point out that FSR 3.1 looks way too noisy and shimmery during movement, to the point where it started to make my eyes feel uncomfortable when looking at it. Another important thing to point out is that both versions of DLSS 4.5 suffer from much more noticeable artifacting and unstable image quality under certain lighting conditions, which can be especially observed indoors. Activating DLSS Ray Reconstruction automatically switches the lighting quality to max in order for it to work. As you will see later in the video, max lighting quality has a very large performance impact, on top of the large performance impact that Ray Reconstruction has. This makes it the heaviest setting in the game. It makes a significant improvement to the game's overall image quality, and it is the only setting that can get rid of most of the game's visual issues, which are caused by the game's heavily optimized yet low quality default denoiser. Model quality on low disables displacement on surfaces, which is heavily used in this game. While it does have a performance impact, it's worth keeping it above low. As for the rest of the options, they gradually improve the level of detail, while Ultra further increases the displacement effect. They all have a negligible performance impact, except for Cinematic. Keep this setting on Ultra for the best balance. The texture quality setting on the lower options can have really low-res textures, especially on NPC clothing. Only when using Ultra does it start looking acceptable. VRAM usage seems to increase measurably from low to medium, but apart from that, the higher options seem to still use up the same amount. Shadow quality on low and medium have really blurry and shimmering near and medium distance shadows, while high and above seem to look the same in this scene. As for distant shadows, it appears to be the same case as with near shadows. There is no immediate noticeable improvement above high, and since this setting doesn't seem to take up any extra VRAM usage, and since high and above have the same performance impact, you can't go wrong with high, ultra, or cinematic. Ray tracing's performance impact can vary a bit depending on the scene and the selected lighting quality setting, but overall, it can have either similar performance as with off, or worst case scenario, a small performance impact, even when CPU limited. It appears this game was designed with ray tracing in mind, as some settings scale better when it is enabled, and this setting is mostly here to be compatible with older non-ray tracing capable GPUs. Keep it enabled. The lighting quality on low and medium is largely inaccurate. On high, it starts looking acceptable. Ultra and Cinematic make gradual improvements, while Max looks completely different. Everything looks clearer and higher res. In this outdoor scene, each option gradually improves global illumination and shading, while Cinematic looks to have even further improvements, like better bounced lighting, which even improves how this water surface looks. Max doesn't seem to have as large of an impact as when indoors, but it still makes everything look sharper and clearer. Performance-wise, up to Ultra, there is a small performance impact. Cinematic drops a couple more frames, while Max drops FPS by around 30% further from Cinematic. I also found that the Max option makes the shadows indoors look unstable, so it's best to keep this setting on Ultra for the best balance. The reflection quality doesn't seem to affect the reflections on water surfaces. What it does seem to affect are the reflections on other surfaces, like puddles and this guard's metal helmet. On low, some reflections are disabled, and above it, each option gradually improves reflection quality, but it's honestly very subtle, since it doesn't seem to affect the resolution of reflections. Performance seems to be the same between low and ultra, while cinematic drops FPS slightly. Use ultra for the best balance. I tested the advanced weather effects setting across multiple weather conditions, and I didn't find any difference in image quality or performance. Perhaps it's broken, or I just haven't found a scene where it makes a difference. The water quality setting on low and medium can have some water effects disabled and are of lower quality, things like ripples, water physics, etc., while the differences between high and above are hard to notice. If there are actually any differences, that is. Performance-wise, there doesn't seem to be any impact even on cinematic, so I recommend keeping this setting on cinematic. The foliage density on low can look a bit empty. Medium is a major improvement. High makes a noticeable difference. Ultra barely increases foliage density here, and cinematic doesn't seem to make any difference. When looking at foliage in the distance, each option gradually improves the draw distance of foliage, except for cinematic, which still doesn't seem to have any improvements over ultra in this scene. Moving from low to high has a 1 FPS impact, and both ultra and cinematic have another 1 FPS impact. For the best balance, I recommend using high. Outdoors, the actual volumetric quality improvements between all the options are very hard to notice, even when comparing them side by side, while the improvements indoors are easier to notice. This setting also affects cloud quality. Going from low to medium makes a small improvement, while high and ultra look the same, and cinematic slightly improves cloud quality further. Performance-wise, there is a small impact up to ultra, while cinematic further drops FPS measurably. Use ultra for the best balance. After a lot of testing in many scenes, it appears that the effects quality setting makes no difference. It's possibly broken. The same story goes with simulation quality. I tested many scenarios and I wasn't able to find what it did, or its performance impact, even after extensively testing both GPU and CPU performance, while stationary and during traversal. My results were within the margin of error. If anyone definitely knows what this setting does, please let us know in the comments, or there is a chance that it's also currently broken. The only difference post-processing seems to make is that it disables lens effects on low. I found no difference between the other options. The particle effects quality setting is hidden under the accessibility tab, and it makes a noticeable difference to the number of particles. Be careful though, as if you set it to 0, a lot of important visual effects don't render entirely, which can break the intended experience of the game. Here are the optimized settings, and I would like to thank my supporters on Patreon for helping me to keep producing content for you guys. A big shout out to Stado Lishi. Let's start with the worst case scenario, using max settings and ray reconstruction at native 1440p. Obviously, performance is going to be a slideshow, averaging 7 to 8 FPS. What's noteworthy is that the VRAM usage is around 8 gigs, the lowest I have seen when using these settings in a game. Disabling ray reconstruction averages around 19 FPS. Keep in mind that performance is still low because the lighting quality is set to max. Using the optimized settings increases the FPS to around 34 FPS on average, a significant improvement, but it's mostly because we lowered the lighting quality from max to ultra, to be fair. turning on DLSS quality improved the frame rate a lot. Now we are averaging around 46 FPS. And take a look at the VRAM usage, which is down to 6.5 gigs. This is one of the least VRAM hungry games I have seen in recent years. It is really impressive what the developers have done in some aspects of the game's optimization. What do you guys think?